Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live with the Isaac Johnson. He is the promoter for the Dallas Showdown and a professional athlete. As you can see, that nice shirt that he's got. Gaspari Nutrition is a sponsored athlete and someone who is at the tip top of that game as well. So, Isaac, how you doing, my friend?
I'm relieved. I'm relieved, even though I'm in, back into prep. I'm relieved. That's how I'm doing.
Well, I got to show you a picture real quick. So now that you're relieved, this is Show Isaac. This is
Yeah,
Pro Athlete Isaac. And
yeah.
this, my friends, this is Promoter Isaac. So you hit some landmark stuff. And I know that for those of you who are just joining us, first of all, make sure, please, follow this guy, Isaac Johnson. If you go to his IG, you'll see a lot of the different routines. It is NIPSHAUFFAVE _ Natty Pro 11. This is a guy who I've known now for 4 years and has been a great friend, also a real inspiration when it comes to how he handles his life and how he handles his times on stage. So when I say times, you're doing more than one show. So
Yeah.
let's dig into it a little bit. I want for everybody who's tuning in, we have people all over the country, YouTube, Facebook. Hello to all of you. Feel free to comment or ask a question as you go through. And as we have people joining, you will also be hearing a lot more of Isaac. So, Isaac, when you first started to want to compete or get into health and fitness really professionally, how did you do that? And, what did it look like for you? Where were you at in your
Right.
life?
Well, so basically, I'll kind of tell the abbreviated version and then kind of come to the bodybuilding side of it. So I got, when I moved to Dallas from Jersey, I always joke around, and this was back in 2012. I say that I ate my way through Dallas. So I was just eating. I put on probably about 30 pounds, take a little bit off to, gain it back, things like that. So I got serious about my health in 2014 because I just didn't like the way I looked. I was like, nah, this isn't going to work. But the one thing was I didn't have the education to really, do what I wanted to do with my body outside of, hey, I'm going to eat clean. And I was scared to go to the gym because the only way I knew how to lift was just, get big, strong, get big, strong, get big, strong. So did that, you know, lost a bunch of weight. And then my brother, so this is, 2016, he started competing. Now I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, Isaac, shout out to my brother, your eyes, like, Isaac, you need to do this. You need to do this. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. Because at the time, this is no whatever to anybody. To me, I only thought there was, you had to take steroid, all these different things. And that was not something I wanted to do, and I saw that I found that there was a natural bodybuilding, all these different things, but I respected it, as a, former athlete and everything like that. So I was like, all right, eventually broke me down in 2018. I decided I was okay, I'm going to give this a try, learn a little bit about the sport. Then 2019 hit the stage and it has been no looking back since.
Love it. Well, a lot of times people start at different times in their life. And interestingly enough, you and I in 2014 started to think about it and we got the itch at the same time. We've kind of come up through the ranks. And I think your time as a professional athlete was a little bit after mine. And I really knew that the love of the sport was going to somehow be involved in mine and my family's life. And I think that you've kind of taken that same route as well. So let's talk about when you were an athlete. What were some of the main drivers that was really focusing you to get on stage and to stay on stage and to prove yourself?
Well, when I first got into the sport as a, I had my own coaching, lifestyle coaching business, and it's kind of like that next challenge. So to myself, when I originally got into the sport, it was about I wanted to coach athletes versus actually be one. However, I was like, I have to at least go through it so I can understand it in order to coach it. That's something that I believe. And I hit that first stage. Oh, it was over. I absolutely fell in love. And, just from there, I just fell in love. And then, so then it became, okay, I wanted to become a pro. And then I started to say, okay, I'm actually pretty good at this. I'm hanging, with some guys that have been doing it for a while. So now it's like, okay, I want to go from being pretty good to being a high level pro and just kind of just move up to eventually, and it really doesn't matter the organization, but trying to, win, I call them league titles and try to win a league title, so that's kind of, that's what, my driver is. And just to show that you can, because I didn't get into this sport, I was 35. Yeah, 35. So, there's no age. Look, there's masters, there's all these different things. So, and then I really learned a lot about discipline too. Like if there's one thing that I took away from bodybuilding, it was about discipline. My first coach, shout out to Devin Baker, like when he took me through a prep, I mean, obviously I've never looked that good ever in my life. And just seeing that, man, if you just sticking to a plan, what that does. So that discipline helped me become a better business person. Just it trickled into all these other facets of my life. And I've seen so many different things grow by learning that discipline. So, so that's that. But that driver right now, as I am still an active athlete, I want to get to that elite level. I see my guys that are elite, and a lot of them are my friends. So I'm like, okay, that's where I want to be. Not just, hey, I can stand on stage with them. I want to be able to truly compete with them and be in that conversation of, oh, I think Isaac might win this show kind of deal.
Yeah, very nice. Well, what's crazy about this is, as you were an up and coming athlete, you somehow got Rich Gaspari's attention. And I'd like for you to kind of tell the story on how you connected with him. And I know that you're killing it over there. Mm-hmm. And you and him have trained together. How did mm-hmm. that really come about?
So I've heard of this because I'm from Jersey, so he's a legend back home. So I already knew about him and everything like that. And then one day on Instagram, I actually won a giveaway for some Proven Egg. I was like, okay, cool, and I liked it. So at this point, we all know with products, you try different things, and I really like the products. So they had an opening for for the Team Gaspari program. Jumped in, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say who was at the time, but the person that was running it at the time, we had our conversation during the interview, and just from there, I took it very serious because I was somebody that was trying to establish different things. So I was the first ever Team Gaspari MVP. So that's when I did the live with Rich back in 2020. We got to kind of talk about my story. Talk more about, Gaspari. And then, since I've just continued to do well because I believe in the products. And, Matt, you know me for a while. If I'm not wearing TNEC, I'm pretty much almost always wearing Gaspari, so I live it. I love being a part of the team. I get to help mentor people that come on the team. Then recently, because, as a unit, Gaspari, we're trying to, expand. And there's a couple IFBB pros that are here, myself, that are here in the Dallas area. So Rich and the team, they came down before, but Rich didn't come. But Rich came for this one, so I got to, work out with Rich, really talk to him, pick his brain. He came on my live, that it's still up there. He came on, so I was like, this is pretty cool. So he was actually coaching one of my Gaspari teammates through posing, and we actually got to talk about, and he thanked me, he remembered me, everything like that, which is another reason why I really. I'm glad to be a part of that team because it wasn't like, we did that and he forgot who I was. He's like, you're continuing to crush it because one of the things I say, if you're going to try to get sponsored and do all these different things, you have to live these products. Too many people, and this is what I did the last time I was on the show, we talked about this, repeat. but, so what people will do is they'll sign up, they'll get a code, and the next day, all of a sudden, everything, their whole story, use my code, never building that trust and everything. And now at this point, two years later, it's like I'm synonymous with Gaspari now, which is pretty daggone cool because one of the top nutrition companies in the world. And that's not just me saying that because I'm part of the team. That's just, a simple fact. And then it, led to them, lending a lot of support to the, to the show and just a lot of support to my career, the team. And it's been a great relationship.
Well, I've seen you put on mass like crazy. You're eating your way into this prep, and I won't spoil that. But I want to say something because as you were on the rise, I think what you were really doing was paying attention as an athlete to what you wanted and what you found in great shows. And then when you turn from athlete to promoter, you just finished your very first show. What was really the reason why you wanted to run a show and promote your own? And I would love to hear that story too.
Cool. So I wanted to give back to the athletes because I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm a coach, but I'm still an active athlete. So it's not, if I hit a goal, I may kind of step back, but I have no plans on really stepping back from the stage, in the next, couple, 3 years. But so after my first season, I was approached about promoting just because a show that I was a part of, I kind of inadvertently helped with the promotion of that show just by being me, talking to people and things like that. They approached me about it. I will say, because it was supposed to be in May of 2020. I am so glad that show did not happen because I was not ready. As a business person, I was ready, but as everything else, I was not ready. The show would have happened, but it would have been a spectacular failure. And so it's a blessing that show never happened. Because I can admit I just completely wasn't ready. And so, kind of went through, became a free agent, had different organizations, asking me, oh, do you want to promote? And I still did want to promote because I saw a lot of different things. And I'm like, okay, I like that. I wouldn't do this. I'm going to try this, all the different things. And again, I want to take this time because I do not want to forget. I want to make sure, I shout you out because it's a story that I tell all the time. So I did, Storm Classic back in 2020. And, I remember from the check-in, remember when I got my bag and I had that little pro athlete tag. Now, this is my third pro show at this point. And I just thought it was from a business, it was a simple thing. It was detailed, but it was a simple thing. But I remember I tell this story all the time. I put that thing on. I did not take it off. I was at the Walmart in League City. I mean, I'm just walking around with that because it was just so cool. Because at the end of the day, kid like me, I grew up. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be pro bodybuilding, but I grew up wanting to be a pro athlete. So having that, I was like, oh man, this is cool. And I just watched the little details that you paid attention to, and I used that in what I was trying to do. Also, I have to give a shout out to Todd Rogers because he taught me a lot about these little details to make it about the athletes. So I was like, okay, so I'm seeing this. And then even with Larry and Todd Tanner, they were kind of showing me on the operation side. Cause I've worked shows for a lot of different organizations, multiple organizations, and I've done everything, expediter, MC, judge. So I've got to see the stage from a lot of different, from just a lot of different ways, and them helping me with, understanding the operational side and, what you can and can't do, or what you should and shouldn't do. So, you take all these things together. So I was like, okay, I was offered an opportunity to take over, the Dallas Showdown. So I was like, all right, let's do it, and, and I was just, I was happy to do it. I was definitely happy to do it.
Well, I think you set a precedence, and what I think you really hold is that know, like, and trust factor. And you're always giving back. You mentioned it with Gaspari. You don't just put a code up, you build a relationship with people, and people understand what you're representing because you believe in it. And I think all of these athletes, if you don't mind me asking, how many athletes did you have in your show?
So let's see, we had 119 register, and I believe it was 90 that crossed the stage.
That's insane for your first year. I mean, usually most new promoters, from what I've seen or experienced, usually are between 20 and 40 athletes. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah. And then the one thing I do want to say, it's never lost on me, and I always like to say this, that it was a third year show. So even though I was my first time, I knew that there was some built-in trust with the show. I mean, thankfully I was able to take it and still grow it exponentially, but it's not lost on me. I didn't start from scratch, and I like to say that because, some people try to take more credit than they should. And I definitely don't want to do that.
Well, I think the intent is every organization wants to keep the athletes first. Unfortunately, there's things that can blur those lines, and it's tough to do. We're put in a very weird position because you have always kept that, and you say that, you are actually one who does it. And I think the execution side and being able to follow through with what you really feel in your heart is something that you notice. So I want to brag on you for a second. When I saw your badges, you had pictures of the pro athletes on there. You totally one-upped everybody on that. You had their pictures, you had their goodie bags. What were some of the feedback that you got from some of the pros? Because I only heard great things about what you did.
They absolutely loved it. Because I was giving them well, I mean, I've already done it. So I started a pro chat. So I was constantly talking to the pros, constantly talking to them. They knew what was going on. I was getting feedback from, what do you guys think about this? And so I would when we created the checks, send them a picture of that. When we made the when we made the badges, they got to, oh, those are, just showing them these, different little touches. But, and again, that comes from what I saw you did. So I was like, okay, what, and it's not even like I want to one up. It's like, okay, how can you set the bar there? Okay, how can I raise the bar next? And then we just, because I'm one of those people, as the bar is raising, I want to go with those people that are trying to raise the bar, because I think it's fun. It's the good side of competition. It's not, oh, he's doing that. And no, it's, oh, I see it. So next year, for, Storm, 2022, I'm like, okay, man. All right. I got to top that. But that's fun. Because then we sit there and talk about it. You say, this is how I did it. Because there's a lot of things that, you told me and guided me on. But, it was the athlete response is, that kept me afloat. They really appreciate it. They still are talking about it, still are thanking me. And that's why I said, at the end of the day, that's really who I wanted it to be about. So I just think about myself as an athlete and the things that I notice at a show. And it's these little things. I'm like, like, and that's why I said I wanted, because again, I remember, and I can't, because your show is just an easy one to talk about. I just remember at the check-in, I did that a few times. Like, oh, they calling us, like, I just saw these little different things, and it sticks with me, and then, so now I try to take some of those things and do them in the ways that I can do them. And it's just, it keeps it, I really wanted to make the show about the athletes, because you touched on something, and I don't want to say that it gets lost, but sometimes the athlete experience gets pushed back. So for example, like with the scheduling, I was thinking, I knew that venue because I've been in that venue several times. So I knew and I absolutely love the venue. The backstage area is nice, but it can get really crowded really fast if you're not careful with it. So I'm thinking about that as athlete experience, because it when you probably experienced it as an athlete, when that space isn't there, people are like, man, I couldn't believe it, in a good way. It was like a ghost town, because there's so much room, because people were able to move around and and everything like that. So, but yeah, they I just really wanted to put touches that the athletes would remember, especially the pros, because I'm not scared to say this. We don't make all that much money. Nobody. I don't care if you are somebody that wins every show you do, you can't really live off of those winnings. So it's like, okay, what can I do to offset that? Try to create an experience that they're going to remember.
Yeah. Let's talk about, and man, you hit that right on the head, because a lot of pro athletes, when they go pro, think, oh, I'm going to make 50 grand this year. And the max check you're going to get is maybe $3,000 or $4,000 if you're lucky. And you might compete once or twice if you're good. So especially if you're a bodybuilder, you might only be able to peak once a year. When we give each other grades, right? And I always have found that great promoters, they start with the poster. So this is Isaac's poster. That is a 10 for me. It is simple, it's clean, it's easy to read, it's got something that's recognizable, and it's piqued the interest because the colors are great, the resolution is great. How would you give yourself a grade as far as 0 out of 100? How do you feel you did with your poster this year?
I mean, I really like it, man. I'm critical of myself, but I really do love the poster. So I'm gonna say an 80.
Okay.
Terry, shout out to Terry. She made that poster. Terry Alvarado. I wanted to stay true. Obviously go with the blue. And then the cool thing is, I know every single person on that poster. But unbeknownst, I did not know, they all ended up doing the show. So it's one of those things where it kind of just, worked out. And but I really like it, because the way that poster was done, we were able to incorporate it in so many different things. We were able to incorporate in the buttons, in the badges. So we took that whole thing and kind of just made it the theme of the show.
Yeah. Well, I would give you a 98, dude. I mean, that poster to me, when I saw it in places, I was like, that's going to be a good show. So that actually is really the first impression of what you're trying to create. That's like your baby, right? You birth it through that. And then the second thing is how often it gets out in the distribution, whether it be in gyms, on social medias. I saw you work your tail off promoting the show, and I think your numbers directly reflect the success. Let me ask you this. How do you feel on your venue? 0 to 100, how do you feel you got a grade on your venue?
The venue, I'll give it at least a 90, just because, and the reason why, actually, no, let me go 85. And the reason why is we had some issues with the screen. So we were supposed to be able to, have some things up on the screen, and then I don't want to go into the whole the whole story. I'll just say there was technical difficulties that didn't allow us to do some of the things that we wanted to do.
Mhm.
So that, that kind of, that hurt some things, but I'm not going to, blame the venue, because the athletes didn't care for the most part. They were up there having fun. So I was like, okay, they're not upset with it. But though that technical difficulty was probably the only thing that really bothered me. But because other than that, the venue is big enough that you can fit a decent amount of people, 400 people, but it's small enough that even in the back you feel like you're like close to the stage. Backstage, and then backstage we had TVs, so in all the locker rooms everybody could see, the dressing rooms, everybody can kind of see what was going on with the show. The way the lobby, the way everything was situated, nobody was going to get lost. That's the best way to put it. We did, we did manage to lose a couple people, but
it always happens every show, right?
But it was it had a nice, flow to it.
Yeah. To bring up that point, a lot of times competitors don't know what the show production is like. Do we have the athletes on time? Are they close? Are they pumped up? Are they glazed? Are they tanned? Hey, do they know when they're supposed to be on? The level of communication, I think you guys really nailed and knocked out of the park. Like you said, you had your little pro chat and you're letting them know, hey, this is what's coming up. This is what I wanted to prepare. You let them know those things, because a lot of times the biggest complaint that most people have, and this is any show, this is not just any of ours, is, okay, it didn't run on time. I didn't know when I was supposed to be where, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do on stage. And so if you've worked that backwards and reversed engineer it to say, I've been an athlete, so I know. One of the things that an athlete can do is understand what they want and bring that into their own show once they run it. And I have to say, with NFF and Larry, I think they've done a tremendous job of growing the brand. I know the Hub City is coming up, and this is something that you've kind of set this pace for as far as the numbers, because a lot of times when numbers are trending down in the middle of the summer because people go on vacation, yours are trending upwards. So let's talk about some of the things that you feel you did really well for the show, because I think you did a lot of things well, and we can be our own worst critics when it comes to being the promoter. What are some of the things that you're really proud of?
So I'll say number one, that not only did the show run on time, but we got out of there early. I was, that felt good. That felt good because I had a plan. I was like, okay, if we're doing this, and I will say this, if anybody, ends up listening to this, whether they're watching now or they listen to this later, work at least 2 or 3 shows minimum before you even think about promoting. Because you have to understand, because as an athlete, you don't really truly get to see what the show flow is, because you're just worried about your time and, things like that. So I really understood show flow, how long it takes the judges typically, okay, this size class versus this size class, and really accounting for the small class. Cause I stayed inside of my registration. So for example, we happen to only have one gentleman do bodybuilding. So I knew, okay, this is going to be quick. We're not going to, I took him on stage once, brought him back on. I wanted to keep it moving without rushing. So the timing, very, very happy about that. I would say the communication with the athletes, that's something that I'm very proud of, because something that, my mom taught me, if you want grace, you have to give grace. And so what I did was like, look, if I'm explaining to you guys what I'm doing and kind of keeping you a part of the process, whenever there's a hiccup, you'll be like, hey, you've been talking to us about this, you're going to handle it. So so from the athlete side, thank you to the athletes. I didn't really catch it. Like, they'll bring up the issue to me, because that's what I asked. I was like, hey, look, just communicate it to me and just be patient so I can, figure it out. Every issue that was directly brought to me, I was able to, handle it in a timely manner, and they were, thankful. So that communication from not just the pro chat, but with the amateurs, that constant communication, emailing a lot. I make the joke. I was like, I wasn't doing the Wizard of Oz promoting. Once you register, you hear from them, then you don't hear from them again until peak week, depending on when you register. Now, if you register late, that's a different story, but doing that. I would say the overall show promotion and leaning on my relationships, and some of these pros I've never really, not met in person, but haven't even met them on, so social media wise. So having them come through for me was huge, because then they would talk to other pros about it. Hey, we're trying to do this. Let's go. So it was just that it was like creating that momentum. And then it got to the point where I was having them be a part of it. And then they wanted to talk about it. They wanted to make it big. It's so, that's why, in the chat, I would always say, this is our show. This is our show. And, they took it and ran with it. So those are the things, that I would say, like, hey, we nailed.
Well, I have to say, Sammy Joe just joined us from Florida. She's also been a promoter, especially with naturals, and she runs Subculture. So for those of you who follow her and her podcast, she'll be on here next month. I want to ask you this question. It's a yes/no question. Don't get too crazy with it. Did you expedite any part of your show?
Yes.
I knew it. I so knew it. I was gonna say it as soon as you said it.
You're an expediter too. You can't help it. Daryl did a phenomenal job. Let me say it one more time. Daryl did a phenomenal job. I just can't help it because I was there.
Mm-hmm. So you gave him a break, right? You're like, you
can't help
it. Tired.
Yeah, I can't help it because he was doing his job, and the runner had disappeared, so he was trying to bring he's trying to get some people. So I was there, stepped in, and that's what you do. Team. You just jump in and help the other.
The sign of a good promoter, and this is what you said that I thought was really interesting, and Samantha has probably done this as well. We come from an expediting background after we were athletes and while we were athletes, right? Because we wanted to be a part of it. We wanted to be involved. We got to see the heartbeat. How did the judges call? What are they looking at? How is the other expediter bringing them on stage? How is the timing? What are we going to do for intermission? Are we keeping things on time? Are they placed in the right spots to keep balance? There's all these things. And then you get over to an MC side, and then you're running the tempo of the entire night show. And you're wanting to talk about those athletes, make them feel special. If you're a judge, you're needing to look for criteria to fit in that, criteria to make sure that you're judging accurately, objectively, and fairly. So I love that you said, you know what, if you're going to want to be a promoter, look at it through the lens of 4 or 5 different shifts or places, and you will see a completely different show. Go watch a show. I am basically any show that you go do, I want to go watch. Not that you're in, but actually promoting. And also in, because you're going to see different promoters and different organizations run things differently. And you can pick up these things and be a sponge. So what do you feel? Let's just say you run this show next year. Same time, same place, all that good stuff. What would you change from your first year this year to next year?
I'll be a little bit more firm with deadlines on certain things, because it just caused, I don't want to say major issues, but it just caused, issues in terms of, things not going exactly the way we wanted. But at the end of the day, with any show, even the most well-ran show, stuff is going to, fall by the wayside, things like that. I won't allow myself to not be able to get in there to do that lighting beforehand with the screen, because that really bothered me, but I mean, there was nothing. It was a point where you just got to cut it and say, okay, we have to move on like this. What else would I do different? See, now that I've done a big show, I'm okay with it. Right out the gate, doing a I would say a 50+ athlete show. It's a daunting task, because there's a lot of, because at the end of the day, as the promoter, no matter what kind of league you have over you, as a promoter, judging filters up to you, athletes filters up to you, coach, everything filters up to you, and they want answers from you. So with more people, it creates those, it just creates those situations. Let me see what else.
And while you're thinking about that, I wanted to tell you this, because you might not even known it. When you did the Storm Classic in 2020, we had a title sponsor, and we could not get the TV to work above that. I don't even know if you remember it. So my film crew ended up putting a logo in front of a camera and then televising the logo through a camera. And all the girls kept walking through it so you could see their legs through it. So you just improvise, right?
That's what you have to do when things, fall straight. I think the other thing is, I think from an overall standpoint, I'll be a little bit tighter with my day of team, because there was just something, and like, again, I'm never going to throw anybody under the bus or, do anything like that, because there's really nobody that did anything, wrong or anything like that. But I would just make sure that I have a few more things buttoned up versus letting some things end up happening to go to chance. But I was going to learn these things, and like in ordering certain things, because now I have a better timeline. Because so for example, I'll bring up, metals. When you're ordering your metals, now granted, if you plan on promoting it again, it does become a little bit easier to say, okay, I'm just going to get X amount. But because the show kept growing, I'm like, oh crap. And then classes, and then as a promoter, understand your rules. So at NFF, the rules are top 5 in every class gets a medal. So at first, when you think about it, it doesn't sound like a lot. But now when you have 30 plus classes, and even the single class, then it's like, oh wow, that's a lot of medals. But yeah, then I would just
let me hit the medals on that while you're thinking, because you crack me up. And now everybody's getting off work, so they're tuning in. So I know a lot of the athletes are excited to hear. Medals are one of those things to where you don't realize it. You think, oh, well, figure division needs 20 and this needs 15 and this needs 10. I have one bodybuilder, so one medal. Well, what if they register for 3 classes? There are so many little intricacies that we learn from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. And then all of a sudden, when somebody comes to you, and you're a sophomore, and I say that kind of freshman, sophomore kind of deal. Somebody runs their first show, they're like, oh, I just put some social media stuff up, right? And then I get a show. No, that's not what a show is about at all. A show is about logistics, detail, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. So, keep going. I wanted just to kind of throw that in, because the medals were important, the trophies.
Well, you bring up a good point, because I think when you go into the promotion, when you decide, hey, I'm going to do a show, you need to decide the kind of size of show you want to have. Because at first everybody wants to get in. Oh, I want to have 400 people. I'm like, especially now, I'm like, okay, good luck with that on your first time.
Yes.
So you think you want to have a big show, which, it's cool. And, you get to say, hey, I had this many athletes and things like that. But you really got to decide, because you have to understand your venue, because not every venue is different. So some venues, you just can't have that, that many athletes. So that's, one of the things I was like, because people have asked me, oh, well, if you do it again, would you keep it at the same venue? I was like, well, yes, because I don't know what the numbers are going to be next year. I only have one thing to compare it to. And this is something I've learned from business, so I'm like, okay, if I decided to go to a larger venue to be able to have more athletes, I need to say, okay, did I at least stay the same? Or, so that way I can change the promotion, because I pulled back the promotion the last 2 months. Some people noticed that, but I just, because the athletes, because I put a cut, because I knew, and even we had talked about this, attrition is typically 10%. We have transformation. So transformation is typically 50%. And those numbers were almost, spot on. So it kept it. So while there still were a lot of athletes, no, it never felt crowded, so it's just, there's just things I would, I would be a little bit even more analytical, because even with the experience as a judge, athlete, all these expediter, MC, so I've done those things. Then when you have to execute all of it, you start to say, okay, because sometimes, and I'm just going to, be honest, sometimes you think, oh, if I, you think, oh, I'm there. No, you can, it's not you, it's
you have
other
to
people.
trust them. Yes.
Yep. And that's something, Todd Rogers said that to me. It was probably about 2 weeks before the show. He was like, hey, you have to make sure you trust your team, put your team in place. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not always good at that. I'm very much, I just like to get it done. I'm like, I'm not waiting for you or whatever. I'm going to go get it done. And sometimes that's great, but that's not always a good thing. That is not always a good thing. So, it's just, you just learn a lot. Like, that's why it's a good question, but it's hard, because there's like these I'll do this little thing different, but then on the large scale, like I said, there was just certain things that I wouldn't have allowed, that I was trying to get ahead of schedule on. Then once it got derailed, I kind of, you start to prioritize, okay, I'll worry about that later. And then all of a sudden, we lost time on Friday when we were trying to set up because we were trying to get that. It was just, oh man, it was a, whoo! It was a nightmare. But we look, at the end of the day, we made it work.
Yep. Well, this is something that you mentioned that I believe the elephant in the room needs to be addressed. For those of you who are watching who are competitors or promoters, bigger is not always better. It doesn't mean because you got 100 people to register for your show or show up, it doesn't mean that that show was considered a success. The true sign of an excellent promoter is being able to get the numbers that they feel comfortable and confident handling. And I think that because you've had those numbers now, for you to run a 50-person show, like half the size, you'd know exactly what to do, how to do it. You understand that you have to trust the people that you put in place for the day of team. You have to trust your judges to make the right calls. You have to trust your expediters to get people in the right place, your runners to get them on time, and then also the trophy folks. Even trophy, and I don't want to say trophy girls or guys because they're trophy people, your team, right? You've got a head person giving out the medals, making sure that the backing is right. And that's a whole nother story. You can't just order 200 medals and just give medals without backings. You've got to have first place figure, first place athletics, second place this. So, if you were to run, let's just say a 200-person show, and you realize that exponentially when the numbers increase, the more people are looking to you for those answers. What would you do differently if you doubled the size of your show?
So if I doubled the size, I would actually, whether it be somebody that's currently on my team, or I would bring somebody in, not necessarily an event planner, because sidebar, I had a friend of mine actually bring up, oh, you should get an event planner. I'm like, now this is a totally different animal. So not saying an event planner could not handle it, but this is a totally different animal. So I would literally bring somebody in, and however we, whether it's a profit sharing situation or I paid them to kind of help me, because once you could get to 200, so we'll talk about, the Ed and Bettys of the world. We'll talk about, Battle Up Productions. Both of those are two, at least at the helm, there's two people, and and we know they have staff under them, but they have two at the helm. So I would not really try to do it necessarily on my own and be like, it still funnels up to me and all that stuff, but I would definitely, bring somebody in. I'd make sure that the venue can handle that. For example, we would not do it at this venue, even with splitting the sessions. I make sure at the venue, I would really, 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 really ramp up the communication, and have somebody, helping me with that. And I'm not just talking about the social media, I'm talking about emails. Like, I knew what was going on, but it's hard when it's that many athletes, it's hard to know what's going on. And then, everybody, they're thinking about themselves, and I'm not trying to say anybody's being selfish. Well, hey, remember this with me? I'm like, I had about 15 people just today ask me X, Y, and Z. So those are like some of the things I would do. I would, because now we have to be, from a business standpoint, you have 200 athletes. So, the funds are coming in, from a lot of, not just athlete registrations, just from different things. So now you can bring in more paid help, paid/professional help. Because not everybody you pay is a professional. Let's just be honest. But now you can bring that in to say, hey, I need this team to handle this, and then basically, I'm just communicating with them and they're handling that. So those are the kind of things that I would do. I think there would just be a lot more delegation. That's a good way to button it up.
And we ended up pulling the curtain back a little bit on promoting, right? A lot of people, they don't really talk and geek out about promoting. They just want to know how'd the show go and who won and who was looking great. Let's talk about the athletes. I saw Eric Murphy do his routine. I saw David McCaddy do his. You had some amazing bodies in bikini athletic and in the pro categories. It blew my mind, and I saw Leo come in with that itty bitty waist. Yep. What were some of the highlights with the athletes that you really enjoyed? What were some of the classes you were excited about? We'll put you on the spot now.
So it's very easy to say because, it's near and dear to my heart, pro men's physique, So, Laz was in the crowd, Corey Tibbs was coaching as well, but he was in the crowd. So you have two, in their respective leagues, world champions. And we all we were jealous of them. We wanted to be up there because they were having so much fun battling, So my favorite moment, because how close, Justin Taylor and I are. So during the pose down, he went and grabbed some popcorn, right? Which I thought was cool. I was like, hey, let's have some theatrics. But the thing is, the way the stage is set up, there's a thing that covers the bottom part where the organ comes up. So he went to go stand on it, and it's a thin piece of, yeah. So if you, I mean, there's videos out there. You see me, I come sprinting over. You have to grab him off. So that was one of my, just my moments, just because him and I are so close. And one of my favorite videos that I posted was him and I at your show. We gave each other the pound and everything. So, but that was just watching that battle, because, man, I felt so bad for the judges, because, one of the things that I hear a lot, and I agree with this. As pros, sometimes we feel like we're not getting a good look on stage, So I wanted to make sure, since it was such a large class, that we at least split them up into at minimum 2 classes, so that way everybody could get a look and get some of that stage time. Because as pros, sometimes now, not all stage time is the same. Being on the diagonal and being on the line are 2 different things. And it's tough when you're a pro, and then sometimes amateurs getting more time than you. You're like, it plays with your head. You just got to be honest about stuff. So I wanted to make sure that they got that. But I still, again, with saying all that, I think the judges, that was just because, I honestly didn't know, because what I loved was how great everybody came in. They took this serious. They took this serious. The only reason why I don't want to name drop is because I don't want to forget anybody, because so many people look great. And we've had our personal conversations. Even people that were outside of the top 10, I've told them, like, hey, that's the best I've seen you look. And it's just, I took great pride that, because a lot of those guys are my friends. We battled on stage, we become friends off stage. And it was just, that top 5 was, was killers. Really the top 10 was, going into it, because, speaking of promotion, one of the things that we did, we previewed during peak week, we previewed each of the pro categories. And, one of the things I said was, like, just being honest, I was like, there are about 6 or 7 guys that could, depending on how they come in, that they could win the show. And they didn't disappoint, because there were multiple time pro champions on that stage. Not just, it was like, so it was, that was great. Pro athletic was great, because one of the things with all the pro classes, there were people from all over. It wasn't just here in Texas. Seeing people come from, different organizations, different parts of the country, like East Coast, up north in the Midwest, West Coast, obviously people here in Texas, and just seeing that cross section, that's what really one of the things that I loved about the pro portion, seeing figure. And the cool thing is, there's a lot of these people that I know their whole story. A lot of people that made their pro debut, a lot of them, I saw them first get on stage. A lot of them, I saw them earn their pro card. So it was like seeing all these stories, come together, just from a personal standpoint. That's why I tried to make it a point to kind of hop on the mic. And I didn't want to take up too much time or make it about myself, but I wanted the crowd to kind of understand, like, hey, it's not often we get to see things like this. There was, Florida had a big show, literally the next day, 4 of the athletes competed in both, and that's near and dear to my heart. So I needed to make sure I did everything I could to help facilitate that. And then, OCB had a couple of larger class shows. So it's like starting to see more of that is great for the sport. That's what I'm loving. That's because to me, that was the other thing, like thinking about the athletes and then thinking about the sport as a whole.
Yeah. If you were to trace this back, what was your favorite moment about that day? Because I know, and before you answer that, I'm going to give you a second to think. It's a blur. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're constantly going. You don't realize you got to wear comfortable shoes that day, because you're going to be probably walking or running about 5 to 10 miles that you don't even realize. And then when you get into your suit for the night show, you got those clunky shoes on that's hurting your knees and it's hurting your feet and they're starting to swell. You can feel it, right? So what was your aha or best moment throughout that day during the show?
So my best moment, hands down, was when during the intermission, I was, you got to go out and, I shouldn't say have to, because I wanted to, but you go out to mingle and make sure people are having a good time, talk to the vendors. My friend Tyson, he stopped me and presented me with this this nice award, this trophy, and it had a base, and then it had a championship ring with the Dallas Showdown logo in it, and it just said best athlete slash promoter 2022, Isaac Johnson. And I just broke down in his arms because it touched me so much. Because I was dealing with a lot that day, dealing with a lot of, just a lot of stuff. We won't keep this on the, on the positive. It's dealing with a lot. And that was just when that emotion just came out. And it was relief. It was joy. It was nice to feel appreciated by somebody, I've grown, developed a really good friendship with. So that was by far, like, that was the moment for me. Cause it was just like I couldn't, I was trying to, I was like, dang, all these people are around. I was trying so hard. And I was like, look, I ain't gonna win this one. So I was broke down in his arms, and it was just a great moment. I'm never, like, a lot of it was a blur. Session 1 was definitely a blur. I remember a lot more of session 2 than I do session 1. But that moment is going to be etched in my heart forever.
Yeah. I saw that ring and I saw that post. And when you have moments like that, you're like, why do you work all year? Why do you do all this behind the scenes, early in the morning, late at night, when you've got 15 things going on, plus show stuff? You're constantly in contact with the venue. You're looking at your registrations. You're making sure the website's working. You're trying to order trophies and awards and goodie bags. And then you got to staff everything. And then you've got, I understand it. And I think a lot of times people realize when they see the appreciation and the hard work that you put in, and then they show it, man, that makes your day. So what are you excited about for 2022, 2023? I'm just curious, just on a personal note from you to wrap it up.
I'm excited for my athletes. We're getting, more and more people are getting on stage. That's honestly what I'm excited about. I'm excited to return to the stage. I got sick, after Legacy last year. I was down for, a month and a half. So it's actually a good thing because I need to slow down anyway. And, so I'm excited to get back on stage and ply my trade and, start battling with my brothers. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And, for the rest of 2022 is seeing my athletes continue to excel. And then, myself continue to live up to that standard. And then 2023, I mean, if all goes the way I want it to, I want to take a step back from the stage and focus on focus more on helping to grow the sport. And I know I'm playing my part right now, but there's just things that I see, and that I want to get more involved with. So that's my plan for 2023. Doesn't mean I'm not going to compete. I just want to see. A lot of it depends on how I look this year. Because if I look the way I believe I can look with with just, actually getting some rest for a change, actually I haven't had a growth season in 2 years, so able to actually put some side, all these different things. I'm excited to see the way I look. And then once I see that, that'll kind of, make my role for, 2023. I do 2023 is as long as it's when I'm hoping it is. I would like to return to the Storm stage. That's something that I have, I'll be doing it this year, but the unfortunate conflict, with the other Showdown I'll be doing. But yeah, that's really it. Nothing. I don't have any specific goals right now, only because there's so much out in front of me. And so it's like, okay, just make sure the athletes are good and, churn out a couple more pros and get a couple more pro wins, and then take my butt and go get one of these pro wins. That's what I'm looking for.
So let me put you on the hot seat. Yes or no question. Or it could be maybe not a yes, no question. Are we going to see Isaac Johnson pro physique, or are we going to see Isaac Johnson pro classic?
Oh, men's physique. Oh,
okay. I'm just making sure because you got some size on you.
I'll say it like this, and this is actually with all due respect to classic physique and all due respect to bodybuilding. So it's mainly bodybuilding people watching, so they'll understand what I'm saying. There are 4% body fat in each of those categories look totally different. I like the 4% body fat in men's physique more than I do in classic and more than I do in bodybuilding. I have, tons of respect for them and what they put their body through. And it's not saying that as men's physique athletes that we don't, work just as hard. They have to carry a different level of muscle density with a different level of conditioning. And now we're going into judging, but that, and I'm happy where I am.
You're getting likes and hearts all over the place right now. So I see them lighting up the screen. It's really funny. I always have to ask because you're exactly right. And, your prep is totally different. You've got to eat if you're trying to move up, because if you're a physique guy going into that level, that's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother stratosphere, so to speak, or even orbit. So, I just want to end and kind of wrap this up with you being able to kind of give you the floor to really thank any of the folks that really stand out in your mind that really went above and beyond throughout supporting you, throughout helping you, with your show. Would love for you to be able to shout those guys out. Go ahead.
Sheesh. So the reason why I hate doing this is because
you're going to leave somebody out.
I'm always going to forget somebody. So, obviously, got to shout out the sponsors, Gaspari, Toxic Angels, Physique Athlete, shout out to Ryan. There's so many.
We love you, Ryan.
I just don't want to, it's like, because then, Uncle Sam's Reject, Graham's Fit. Like, there's so many people, Sarita B Health and Fitness. There's so many people that were a part of this. I don't want to leave anyone out. That's
You're
like
doing
my
such a great job right now. You're doing a great job.
Because I keep thinking about, let me say this. I'm thinking about the, the rundown. I'll say this definitely. Thank you to you. For your support, financial support. Moral support. Man, I just don't want to leave anybody out. That's why but let me say this. I do need to thank my TNEC team. Like, they held it down for me leading up to the show day, after the show, because that's who a lot of the staffers were. So I have to, they all know who they are, so they know if they were there. Got to shout out my TNEC team. Oh man, I just don't want to leave nobody out.
We'll leave it there
I'm
because
scared to death to leave people.
You could go NFF, you could go Expediters, you could go judges,
so many,
and then
there's so many. I already got Daryl, so
no, you got them all. So and I love to put you on the spot, yet I have to as well, because I know that for a lot of times, once you make the list out, I don't think it's really clear until a week later, because you're like, holy cow, that went well, and you're replaying this in your mind as you go to sleep. And you're just coming off of it for a week. And so I know that your posts, as far as thanks and appreciations, go out. And frankly, Isaac, you did it right, man. And I think that there's never the perfect show. And I think most promoters who are really caring about their show want to have everything run perfectly. And that's never the case. And we're chasing it, right? So it keeps us coming back the following year. So if we've gotten to this level in our first year, we want to get to this level in the next, and then continue to build until we become so attuned to what the athletes want, we never forget the basics. And I think most expert show promoters or veterans sometimes forget what it's all about, because they're trying to outdo themselves every year. But at the core, we all know your heart, and we all know why you're doing this. And it is truly for the athletes. And that's one of the reasons why you have an amazing team. You've got sponsors who want to invest, not only financially, but their time and their trust in you. And, the athletes, the judges, the expediters, staff, the organization, they believe that you can produce something that is going to be worth showing off and remembering. And that, to me, is the sign of someone who's going to do big things and great things. And you have already. I can't wait to see it next time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Isaac Johnson, he is a pro athlete. He is probably one of the best promoters that I have seen coming out of his first show. And for those of you who do follow him on Instagram, or if you're with T-Neck, I just want to let you guys know you've got an amazing gentleman right here. And I just want to thank you for being on and taking a little bit of time with us. So, and by the way,
I appreciate it.
It's going to be good to see what we can do, not only together supporting each other, but more importantly, the next level that for you with Gaspari, with the stage. Super excited for your future and where you're going with your team, yourself, and also your show. So
cool.
Got to say kudos to you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
You got it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that would be Isaac Johnson. Follow him at Nip Shaw. How do you say your Instagram?
Nip Shuff Ab _ Natty Pro 11.
There you go. Next,
I wanted to change it, but I'm not gonna. Sorry, people.
No, you just keep it as is. I mean, I've changed mine around a little bit because I wanted to make it easy to remember. So yours is easy enough. You got it right on the ticker. For those of you who are following, feel free. David McCaddy. My
brother.
He just
right
chimed in, and
That's
so he was
right
excited.
There.
Yep. And we've been
That's my
talking
brother right
about
there.
David too, because he's got, he's got an incredible physique, and somebody who when I saw his Instagram post being that dry and that lean, I'm like,
Mhm.
watch out. He's going to be a top 3 guy. And sure enough, he is.
Well,
So
and look at where you know where I met him. At your show.
no way.
Yeah, that's where I met
Small
him. That
world.
his Facebook picture. That's what that's from when he won his pro card there.
Small world. Well, crazy enough, he's on a Storm Classic poster along with his daughter. So
Mhm.
now that we have kids fitness and family fitness, we're going to see what happens. But Isaac, always a pleasure just to hang out, just to
Yep.
chill, chop it up,
Thank you.
and enjoy
Thank
you.
you.
And please let me know. Oh, Vanessa. Yeah. So Vanessa did say, David, I know if you're still watching, which you are, because I can see how many are watching. Yeah. She said you looked insane, and she corrected it with the asterisk.
Yeah.
So. You'd be amazed. We got McAllen, we got Houston, we got Florida, we got California, we've got the Northeast chiming in. So I'm sure that you probably have, that's the reason. So anyway, with that being said, we'd love to have you back. If you would like to be a guest back anytime, any place, you're always welcome.
I want to be the first 3 times. So let me know. I want to be the first 3 times.
The first time was amazing. The second time was even better. We can't wait to see what the third's going to bring.
Let's go. Let's go.
Well, cool. All of you guys enjoy your weekend. We will be back here 5:30 Central next week. We will have Master Trainer Jacob Salisbury. This is a guy who just launched 3 separate things and is actually training trainers in gyms. That's how good he is. And let's put it this way. I'm getting back into shape because I'm learning some from him. And, of course, you'll see Isaac. If you have any questions, reach out to him for next year. And we will look forward to seeing you guys back same time, same place. Have a great weekend.